I'm starting now, and hello
We are
everybody.
started.
This is
Hello,
Tech
everybody.
Show. Now in English. Uh, this is show
From
about
Mother Russia.
exactly. um, Here we're talking about technology and software development and everything. Today we'll speak about working as developer in startup company versus big company, I guess, or corporation, or whatever. I'm not sure what the difference is. What do you think? What's the when's well like each company was in the beginning kind of startup, and when it startup becomes a company.
Uh, it's
It's tough
hard.
question.
I guess. Yeah, yeah. I think it depends what we are defining as a startup, more or less from a business point of view, or the size of your business unit and all that things, or if we are talking more about the culture, I guess. But I guess the culture can stay a startup for quite a long time. Um, Maybe you can say that you're not anymore a startup when you maybe when you have too much bureaucracy in your company or something like that. But for me, it's really hard to define when you're not anymore a startup, but you're a mature company. It's hard. Uh, Maybe I can just guess you're a mature company if for every small request you have to fill millions of forms or something like that. Then you're a mature company because you have so many different ways to do the same thing that it's definitely you a company.
Yeah. And what do you think about like time span? Because like I heard some difference like first 3 years is startup, then it's not anymore suddenly, or 5 years, I don't remember. Like, and some companies like say they are 10 or 15 years there and still say we are startup, blah blah blah.
I guess it's hard. It's really hard to. From my maybe we can argue more not on the time span because it's also hard for me. I guess it's same you can become a mature company quite fast, and the same you can become you can stay a startup for a really long time. I guess maybe it depends. You're the mature company if you have enough customers and you have some agreements with these customers. I guess that you're not anymore so flexible as before. If you can describe the startup as you have more flexibility in the decision making, I guess. So maybe the nice kind of the nice measurement of startup versus big company, I guess maybe the client base. If you really have a lot of clients, maybe that makes you not startup anymore. I don't know.
Okay,
It's hard.
so I would define like as soon as like company becomes self-sustainable, it's not a startup anymore. It's like risks are much lower, and you don't need to find investors so hard because like you can sustain by yourself. But yeah, so I guess for matter
It's
of
hard.
today's discussion, we just take startup like five five-man shop versus like huge corporation. So to be like
I guess
to
so.
separate stuff, to not
Yeah.
trying to distinguish some indistinguishable things. Okay, so developer in startup versus big company.
Yeah. So
what way would you prefer to work as a developer?
I guess I think that's my one of my favorite phrases is that I'm not representative. I guess not. I guess I'm sure because I think I'm not sure. I have only one major experience, I guess, in my life, and it's partially connected to mature company, I think. Not sure, but I still think maybe more mature than a startup. Um, I think you have pluses everywhere. So my point of view for now, and I think it will stay for a while like that, that maybe um, if you know what you would like to do in your life, and you know that probably you spend most of your life with doing, for example, some graphic designing or graphical cards or GPU magic, then probably it totally makes sense to go directly trying to be a part of NVIDIA or something like that, that you will go to the company that can give you best practices and state of art in this tech.
Well, a big company, I don't say like about like this big names like in tech, because like you can work as developer in really big companies that not really about tech but still need developers. So
No, I mean, it's from point of view. It's just an example, right? If, for example, if you know that you'd like to do the cloud things for all your life, so then for sure it doesn't really matter. You can really go to the AXA insurance. They for sure is doing something with cloud, and you can be happy there. Or you can go to something else, some bank, right? They also can be happy with that. These new banks, online banks, I think they will be quite happy to hire someone talented. I mean that if you know where you would like to go and you don't want really to spend the time to finding yourself what you like, then probably the big company would be a nice choice, because you can directly dive into the in most cases they're quite mature also in the engineering area, because they know what they're doing. They have plenty of experiences, so they have a huge package with them. If you are just from the university and you didn't have some special university, I don't know, on the AI or on the embedded engineering and something like that, then maybe it's worth to go to the startup, that because there you have maybe more freedom to try the stuff out, and there you probably are more flexible to say, oh, I want to try backend dev, and then the next week, or I'm not sure how it really works, but maybe next few months it's like, oh yeah, I'm bored, let's check how it looks at the front end. Or you will end up just doing both, and that's why you will get the experience from both things. Again, not sure how it works in a startup, but sometimes I think that maybe I missed 1 or 1.5 years somewhere there, that you can try more things and try yourself in different roles. For sure, yeah, so something like that.
okay. So basically what you're saying is like working in big company means like focusing on one specific area, and in startup it's more like have a broad experience.
Not
Broader experience.
I wouldn't call it maybe broader, but maybe wilder. Yeah, maybe it's more uncontrollable and unpredictable. And in most cases, you are always encouraged, maybe in the startups, to work something. At least they try to promote it like you're working with a state of art in the current technology. So sure, if you're now joining the mature company, then probably you have a chance to end up with supporting some COBOL on mainframes. Can be. But if you're joining a startup, then probably, I still guess, you will end up with some fancy Kubernetes, Docker, magic things and everything with a Haskell, and your like luxury world of new shiny things. So yeah, it's more wilder and more on the edge experience. So I wouldn't call it broad, but still.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So from my experience, like it really depends. Like what you say, I guess even in startups, it's like really different. Depends on startup, and there are often like startups within big companies, and these big companies brings its own culture in this startup, and it's really hard to decouple this
Yeah.
stuff. And
Um,
even in this startup, you like feel it's not really like, yeah, it's somewhat new. Like they trying to create this fancy new style of work with kicker and like free uh, time. Like you can work whenever you want, like at night and whatever. But like still the culture
yeah.
is so like it's really like structured work. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, if you talk like it's this fancy like startup that like just gathers 1 million and trying to do something just from scratch. Mm, yeah, I think like the problem in this is like you really like have to be already experienced to go there. Like it's really hard to learn something new because
With
it's,
startups, you mean?
yeah,
Mm.
like it's so fast pacing. Like it's you have no time to learn. You need to do some stuff and do it like dirty way, like hacking and like this. So and this is kind of style of work probably will bring problems later. But on the other side, in the big companies, you will also not learn too much because like usually you will just do the same stuff each day repeatedly. So I don't
Yeah.
think that like learning you would learn anywhere something. You just need to learn it by yourself regarding of the company.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess it depends. As I said, it depends on the person, I guess itself. So, for example, if you are if you're more into the self-learning and all the things, and then probably we start up because the topic switches it can switch really fast, and that's why it will maybe help you more with the self-education because the topic switches and you do not need really to find something to learn because you will always get the opportunity to work with something different, maybe new. With big companies, it's as I'm always saying, it's really easy to stuck with the developer of close button in the dialog in the file dialog or something like that. So you're expert of this uh, button and you stay with that and you never switch from that. Or yeah, something like that. Where if we are going back to what you said about this startups in the big company, I, I don't really think that that works well. Such things. I hear that recently a lot, something like that. That big company claims that, oh, join us, we are the huge company, but especially in that small department, that product, we have a startup culture. So everywhere else we have a corporation culture, but here startup culture. And you always asking the question like, okay, how can you ensure that exactly this 10% they're startup like and another 10,000 they're not? So where the border and how you say or where when you have something like oh, we want to try the new technology, then they are the security, your complete security department that maybe consists of 1,000 people. They are like, you're fine. They are like startup, so let's give them all permissions to do that. No, that's I don't really know how it works. It sounds good as an attraction for hiring. Totally sounds good because you're like, I'm special. I'm like startup and startup culture. But yeah, not really sure. Um, yeah. Um, I guess it also depends on the type of the startup because I guess what you said when that you have to do a lot and the same thing, or not a lot. You have to do a lot and maybe complex task, and you really need experience. I guess that's more applicable for the startups, like first months of the startup, I guess, when there's really nothing in there and you have to really rush the things, and you should have the experience in probably all areas of the software development, or just of that specific area, not exactly the software, whatever is that. I guess we also can talk about something like this one, more mature state of the startup, when you have something, you have a product that works, and now you're trying to acquire the customers and move from the startup to the mature company or something like that. There, maybe it's still interesting because you still maybe have more flexibility than big companies, but you're not anymore in such rush. So still a bit of rush, but not it's at the beginning, I guess.
Maybe but this is then a definition of startup, that as soon as there is rush, it's startup, and then not anymore.
I would argue in the big company you also have rush sometimes, deadlines and all that things. And I guess maybe there it's even more rush than in maybe sometimes, because in the startup, yeah, it's hard to describe, because in startup you're more or less fighting for survive or die, because probably you don't really fight for customers, you just fight, die, survive or die. And big company you're more or less fighting to get the contract, and there you have the real cash probably, or also fighting for customers. So I think everyone's just fighting for customers, so it's hard. Yeah. But I think the main difference for me between the startups and big companies is that, for sure, with startup it's easier to apply something new in your day-to-day job, because probably you don't have much legacy stuff or something like that. You don't have to care about something old or compatibility back or something like that. On one hand, that's good, because in big companies, every time when you want to try something new, you have a lot of things that can stop you. Something like, oh, we have still support for that, we still have support for that, we still have that here. So it's really hard. So it's not matter of days, it's months in best case.
You can do anything as soon as everything works, but it means you cannot do anything actually.
On the other hand, I would argue that maybe in startup it's maybe not always the best place where you can get the best practices of something, just because it's not enough time to build these best practices. Only if, I guess, the only special case is, the only exception is when a startup was somehow formatted out of engineers from the big company. So, for example, if someone from, I don't know, IBM just forked themselves and said, like, now we are this different company and we have nothing to do with that company, but they were the same department, so probably they will just transfer all the knowledge. And
but wouldn't it be then the same as like creating startup within the company? So wouldn't they bring the same culture from corporation, like same management systems that like stop the creativity and all these problems, like with these big companies where just small part of the team doing this button and a lot of buttons now, because like
I guess it depends. It depends why they left the previous company. Maybe they left just because they didn't like culture, and they tried to change it as much as possible. But I think it's hard to discuss that, because it can be both ways. It can be the way that they just decided to do something on their own, and the easy way for them is just to mock the culture from the old company. Or they really left because they didn't like the culture, and now they will try to do everything in the opposite way. That's always not good. It's not always good. Yeah. because to go into directly opposite
Yeah,
direction is
so from my
cool.
experience, like I saw people like doing strange stuff, and I understood that like they are like developers. I'm talking about developers. They came from big companies, not like really software companies, but somewhere around. And like what I noticed common is like they're really focusing. They have a really narrow focus, like really like, oh, no, I'm not responsible for this stuff. Like he would do it, and like within Scrum and everything, it's like everybody is responsible for everything. And this like mindset of big companies, like really narrow focus on what is your responsibility. Like so it's not about now narrow focus. It's about like people really bring the culture with them. Like they not more probably aware of it, but they will bring the culture. So if and you say that like the people coming from big companies and starting the startup, so I'm not sure how it will work. But yeah, like
Yeah,
we see like many people came from Google, out of Google, and started startups. I'm not sure if I know any like startup that was successful, like really successful, but maybe you know, like from
um,
ex-Googlers.
don't know. You can meanwhile you can tell me something and I will try to Google.
Okay, so so I would personally prefer to working in small like startup company, like because like definitely there is more risk, like, and I saw companies like that was just like was on the edge of death. uh, Working there was like funny because like it's really demotivating for everybody, but still like interesting experience. Oh, what a sound!
Well,
It's from your phone, I guess. uh,
oh yeah, maybe.
so so there is a risk like being in startup and suddenly it's over. But anyway, anyhow, like it's really like don't having this legacy or back compatibility. It's not like eventually we'll get it. Like when you create some stuff, you need to support it. But like not supporting stuff that comes from like 10, 15 years ago, it's really like um, good stuff, I think, because like when you trying to fix something and see, oh, comments from 2004, like it's true story, like it's like really um, a kind of demotivating. Yeah. Uh,
Yeah, if
so
yeah,
this
coming back.
legacy, yep.
Yeah. No, I just finished the Google, and apparently there are some, but they're not really too popular.
Okay. So
So I guess
creating
it's somehow
startup
clay.
by people from huge companies, probably even from companies like Google, is not it's not a guarantee of
Yeah.
success.
So yeah, it's really hard. I don't really know. So it's hard because everything was listed, at least because I checked on this Quora question, and yeah, it's not really. Yeah, I don't know them. So I'm sure maybe they are successful. Maybe they are in some special areas for, I don't know, air forces or something like that. But I don't know them really. Yeah, you're totally right. I'm also thinking that sometimes maybe the startup culture is something cool. I guess it's also, I just want to say, it's also, I guess, highly depends on the people um, inside the company. But um, I'm still thinking that if you're joining a startup, it's more chance that you will end up with more friendly environment, I guess, because I'm not sure why, but everyone who worked in the startup and had experience something like in that area, they are always describing their experience like a more friendly and more inspiring and something like that, open-minded, and all those buzzwords about the healthy working environment. I would argue that it also could be a case in the big companies. The only problem about the big companies, I hear a lot of from other companies that we have in our area. I'm hearing a lot of bad experiences. Something, for example, as in that companies you have sometimes a really weird or old ways how you will get a promotion.
In
And
big
in
companies,
most cases,
you mean?
yeah. And in these cases, you more or less have to describe why you're better than the person B, and that's
The office politics.
yeah,
Explains it
something
all.
like that. And you really have to do something like that. And I guess that's super weird. Probably maybe because all that strategy is outdated and old, and probably in big companies it's hard to move to something more, yeah, appropriate, I guess, in that situation for humans, not to try to just blame each other to get the better spot. But whatever. So yeah, for me, I think the startup is maybe something with a better working environment.
Um,
Yeah.
so I would just say something opposite to you to create an argument.
Oh no. Oh no.
Oh yes. Example is, I guess it's Uber or maybe Lyft. I'm not sure. Like probably neither of them. Some of the startup like somehow it's like created a really toxic culture in it, and like it was so huge problem. It's even somehow. I will even Google it to be sure not saying something stupid.
Yeah. Meanwhile, you're googling. I will try to argue. Yeah. I guess it's always the you always can find some kind of exception.
So it was Uber's, and it was like become a topic of investigation for gender discrimination. Like it was so toxic culture that it really create huge problems, and I even think the CEO lost. Like they changed the CEO because of this. So it's like, and Uber is okay. Probably at that point of time when it was become a problem is it was not a startup. I would not call the Uber startup now. It's I guess more or less corporation now.
I guess pretty mature.
Yeah, but like this culture came not like created not suddenly. Like it came from the early days. So yeah, I guess this nice environment is generally I guess in startups it's more like nice to work because like it's really human relationship is more playing a bigger role because like it's corporation just most people just came there for 8 hours to sit on the behind the desk and then leave it this place and forget about it. And in startup it's like when people are going there, it's like they're probably really believing what they're doing because like there is a risk and like they need to be like have some motivation to work there in startup. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so probably generally there is more like this nicer culture in startup mostly, but
Mm-hmm.
I guess there are some counterexamples.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's totally correct. I guess for me, if I would say the recap for this whole discussion, and that a startup is a nice place, not the really early days of the startup when you really have to do a lot, and probably a startup is looking for someone pretty experienced to kick off all beginning, I would say. Um, but more or less to join maybe after 1 year or something like that. It's a nice place for the newcomers, I guess, because maybe you have a better working environment and more supportive. And I guess startup is really interested into making you experience, because it's easier for them to find you and to give you knowledge than um, it's more important for them to do something like that than with a big company. They can't really just hire one person and say, look, we are searching for the person who will fill that special need, and we don't really care about your development, because if you fill that need, then yeah, okay, good with us. We don't really want to know if you can fill something else, because we had the budget to fill that special hole done. With startup, I guess you will get more attention with your education, and that's why I think in most startups you can find that they're really interested into uh, letting you go to conferences and really somehow mentoring you. So that mentoring is really it's quite popular and developed in the startups area. You for sure you have to pay for all that stuff, and under the pay, I'm saying that it can be stressful with startups, because you don't have somehow best practices or maybe defined processes. So sometimes you can really wake up in the middle of the night because something is broken, especially if you are reliability engineer or something like that. Can be, why not? Maybe not
And
so stressful.
not only reliability engineer, because like
Yeah, any
probably
engineer. I just say,
every engineer just need to be on the place to fix the problem.
I'm just saying especially because then
You,
reliability
you'll
is
get
your
the
main
call
topic.
first.
Yeah, you'll get the first call, and then you can forward and just say, oh no, they still this thing that done. No, yeah, for sure that what you have to pay, for sure it's not stable. So you have to be prepared that maybe at some special day you will get a notice, and in 2 months the company is done and then it's finished. But as someone
or,
said,
or like in 1 week.
yeah, in 1 week or something like that. As someone said, especially if you do not work remotely, but you work in the office, always keep track of your fresh food or something like nuts or fruit, because I think more or less you can literally track if you have at start you have something more expensive, I don't know, and fancier as a bananas, grapes, and if company goes down, you can see that
It's cutting
everything
the
kind of
cost.
fading away, and at some point you have only apples maybe, and even nothing, and you're like, maybe I have to start to think to find
So
a new
there is
job.
science on the wall.
Yeah. So for sure, something like that. In opposite to the big companies, that there, for sure you have a stable place. Maybe I wouldn't say about all big companies, but some part of them. Maybe they're not so interested into developing you as an employee. They have for sure some programs to develop you, but they're not interested personally to do that. You can end up with doing a small part or small thing and always be in that area. And
So I would say here
it will be super.
really need to be have a really motivation to moving forward and to
Yeah,
pushing it like harder, because like as soon as you don't do it, nobody cares. And in
yeah,
startup, it's more like it's like all company pushing you, because like all companies
yeah.
moving forward.
That's totally true. It depends what kind of person you are. For example, if you're really a fighter, I would say, and you really want to push your career up, then maybe big companies will pay off better because they have a dedicated path and there you can grow directly to manager or something like that. But there you have to push yourself, be motivated, and really work maybe even more harder than you have to. On opposite side, in the startup, the whole company will move, and if you're a person that can carry a complex task, but you cannot push yourself to take these tasks, take these responsibilities, then in startup, sure, you will just end up with all these responsibilities and all these tasks because you are maybe the only person who can carry them because all others carrying other 10 tasks or something like that. So I guess if you want to get the knowledge and want to grow, but you have these problems that you cannot identify the points where to grow and to motivate yourself, something like that, then startup will fit for you quite good because they will just throw some tasks into you and you will just say, okay, I have to do that, otherwise I'm done. And
yeah, good point.
And for sure, if you because we described two persons who just want to go by the career and he has a motivation, or who wants to go with the self-development and who has less motivation, and maybe a third person who just, this person does not want to go somewhere and develop herself. So I think then the best fit is for sure the big companies because you have safe, warm place, you're doing a special job, a dedicated job. It can be super complex. It's no really a problem about that.
But there is nothing new in it.
Yeah, it's dedicated to you. At some point, you will automate that to the point that you will know what to do exactly. The complete happy path, how you can do that. And for sure. For sure, you also have to keep in mind that if you're doing the same thing for 10 years, maybe if you would like to switch the job after 10 years, maybe your knowledge, they're not anymore relevant to the real world. So it can be so, and it's really hard to find. But I think with engineering, it's always possible. I think it's still possible to find some open position with a COBOL or something like that. Why not? Big banks, they're still using that. They still
I guess it's so niche that I don't know, it's really you need to show a lot of experience working in it. So, and without a lot of experience, you will not job. You will not get this experience. So I guess this is there are people that working there and let's say have worked for till end of their life, and getting there is maybe not a good idea. What?
No, sure. I guess with startups, the additional plus that if you're jumping into startups, it's maybe 95% that you will end up with the edge technologies there, and they are relevant for next. It's two cases, I think. One case, they're relevant for next 10, 20 years, or another case, they're relevant for 1 year and then they will die just because they're not used. Especially if someone 5 years ago decided that the Dart is a good idea to use. Now, I guess it's not the best candidate to end up on your resume list because
what is which
this Dart thing from that's that's why it's not a good idea.
I don't remember it. What was it? Okay, it doesn't matter. I guess
it was some kind of alternative language to JavaScript from Google. This Dart, and it's I think it's.
I don't
that was hype, and then it's died, and now that with this Flutter thing, they're trying to bring it back. But I think it's awesome.
Yeah. Okay, so I don't know what to say more to this. So let's call it today and wrap up. So thank you for watching this. Please subscribe, dislike.
Write your comments.
Write your comments. Don't write your comments. Go to the toilet. Go for a walk. Do whatever you want. Thank you. And bye.
Bye.